Well, I had a whole bunch of questions for you, but since we're limited on time, I teach at a local university and I teach audio engineering. My students have a lot of questions, especially since you've been with audio engineers for a long time, obviously with KISS. How do you go in to a situation where you're going to record a new album? How do you pick your producer and engineer?
The secret in life is that, unfortunately, the most qualified people don't often get the job. It's people skills that get you jobs. The people who become actors or producers or writers or get the jobs are people that have some sort of charisma. Most people can do a job adequately well enough. So that's a long winded answer by saying the producers and the engineers who learn how to schmooze. It's a very old Greek word. No, it's not. It's Yiddish. If you know how to schmooze, it will increase your chances of being hired for all sorts of things. So while somebody's learning how to turn knobs and cross MIDI hush and X235 popcorn farts, the truth is the guy that fixes your car, who's the engineer, the one you like more and has more people skills, will be the guy you're going to get to fix your car more often than not because we're social. Learn people skills at the same time you learn how to twirl your knob. It'll increase your chances of getting hired and move from Park City. Go to where there are millions of people, it substantially increases your chances of being hired. There are only 15,000 people here.
All right. One last.
Gene, you just had an extensive interview with comics legend Stan Lee.
The only one, by the way. Kirby's gone. Who else is there? Gil Kane's gone. He's it.
Tell us what you really think of him.
You know, he's the Shakespeare of modern times. Isn't that far off? And I'll tell you why. Because no matter what level of quality you assign Shakespeare, it still impacted society to the point where To Be or Not to Be or Beware the Ides of March, movies are, it's part of the language. His creations, fictional characters and phrases and so on, and the storylines became part of the culture and the language. Well, Dashiell Hammett, Hemingway, they can't hold a candle to Stan Lee. His characters, his phrases, his comic books have impacted and changed the world. And then the people who were influenced by that went on to get their own millions of fans. Spielberg, myself, I'm not in that league, but you go right down the line. The next generation of people who grew up on Stan's comic books were directly impacted by that sort of sense of self-empowerment that even the gods, the Greek mythology, and even Marvel superheroes have human weaknesses, and some of them are even pimply-faced teenagers like Peter Parker, like all of us are. So I didn't answer your question, but I like my answer much better than your question.
All right, and then I have a question from my uncle Scott in Florida. Has been a huge KISS fan his whole life. And he says from about 1974 to 1982, KISS was never pictured without their makeup. How did you do that?
It wasn't easy. We had a point of view about, the superheroes, again, of protecting your alter ego, basically so you can have a private life. It wasn't easy, I moved to Hollywood for a while and started going out with starlets and so on, so just because it's appealing. So I started to cover my face with the handkerchiefs that they gave you, for dinner. What are they? The napkins, rather. And it always looked like I was some kind of Lone Ranger character coming out there with a mask on his face. But I'm just trying to protect the identity. But after a while, you rise up. First we were the boogeymen and the cannibals of rock and the so and so, so and so. But eventually you become sort of iconic. King Kong used to scare people, and then it became King Kong, the big guy.
I think I know the answer to this one, but Marvel or DC?
It's clearly Marvel, but a lot of the Marvel guys went over, including Jack Kirby, to DC and made it a better place. DC, you have to give kudos to because they started the entire pattern. When two Jews from Cleveland decided to take the Moses story of the Old Testament of a child being put in an ark and being sent down the river when the Egyptians took him and raised him, is the same story as Kal-El. By the way, El-Al, Kal-El, they're all Hebrew names, where the planet's being destroyed, and he's being sent down in a space ark. By the way, he's reclining just like the Moses figure. And why would you go through space on your back if you're a baby for who knows how many trillions of miles? And of course, Clark Kent is adopted by Gentiles, the little Jewish kid from another. So intrinsically, it's the Moses idea. And all the comic book companies and almost all the characters were created by Jews, ironically enough. Jack Kirby, you don't want to pronounce his last name. Stan Lee was Stanley Lieber. Bob Kane, Batman was Bob Cohen. Bill Fine, who created the Human Torch and so on. These are disenfranchised people who were never part of mainstream America because of anti-Semitism, and so aspired to greatness in literature, in comic books. So they created their version of Der Übermensch, the German version of it, and it goes back to that as well, by the way.
With the connection to Israel, you're being born in Israel. Kiss is going to do some concerts, hopefully coming up soon in Israel. Who do you plan on taking over as support with that, and when do you plan on going through with that?
Jesus. I figure a lot of tickets could be sold. He's Jewish too. Mm-hmm. We know he's Jewish because he lived with his mother until he was 33.
Last question.
With the current,
I thought that was a decent, and his mother thought he was God. Mm-hmm. And then he goes into his father's business.
two quick questions to end it up. What are your thoughts about the current comic book movie adaptations? And who do you like in the Republican primary?
The Marvel world has been much more successful, and if it wasn't for Avi Arad and his team, by the way, I had the rights to do Ghost Rider. Grey Ghost was the bad guy in the Fantastic Four comics with the apes on the moon. You don't know what I'm talking about, I know.
Sure.
You do?
Of course.
Very.
Look at his T-shirt.
Look at that. But wrong company. But in either case, tell me the question again, I'll answer it.
The current comic book movie adaptations, what are your thoughts? And do they have legs?
Marvel has done a better job at it. And then Batman. You know, there were Batman and Superman movies during the 40s, the Republic serials, Kirk Alien as Superman, and then there were two, Superman meets Atom Man, and then there was a 1956 version with George Reeves, Superman meets the Mole Men. I'll keep you here all day. And there was Batman serial, but they were kid stuff. It wasn't really until Marvel and Stan Lee and Steve Ditko and the other guys who started to think of these characters as Greek mythological and Norse mythology heroes, gods who could fly through the air, change the heavens, and so on and so forth, who had human weaknesses, human foibles. They were apt to get angry, vain, jealous, and so that's what made us connect. I mean, I can't relate to God. I mean, how do you do that? I think the thing that makes Jesus appealing to so many people is he was tempted, he was this, he was that, so a lot of people get that. I can't relate to what Jews call God, like the Father. But in Greek mythology, the Greeks could relate to their gods because they were angry, they fought with each other, they were like people. And who's got a chance? Mitt Romney's got a chance. Newt Gingrich, and he's got the experience. He's run successful companies, knows how to make money, and knows how to be taxed at 15% instead of 48% if he lived in Beverly Hills, the way I get taxed. But that's the right way. If you invest, you should be taxed at 13 to 15%. Because if you invest, you can also lose everything. So I think it's all fair. If Newt Gingrich runs, it's not going to work, although I think he's qualified, because 50% of the population are women, and they're not going to put up with the first lady as the other woman, the mistress, and so on. So I really don't give a shit. I just want to know if you can do the job. I don't care what you do with your schmeckle or who's in bed with you. I don't care if you like farm animals. Who can do the job? And I believe Mitt Romney and President Obama are going to have a very good dialogue, and I want to hear that. I want to hear that dialogue.
Well, thank you very much, Gene. It was a pleasure.